Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars figure review. Today we're taking a look at a really cool figure from the vintage collection. This is of course the Mandalorian himself, Djarin, and this particular figure is accompanied by the first ever 3 3/4 inch release of the Child. Not only that, but this figure comes with an immense amount of accessories, some great detail, and it is, in my opinion, one of the best figures released this year. In any scale, be it 6-inch Black Series or 3 3/4 inch Vintage Collection, Hasbro really have outdone themselves with this one, and a huge thanks goes out to them for providing this figure for a review. You may remember it was included in that massive Mandalorian promo box that they sent out recently and that I gave you guys an unboxing of, so make sure you check out that video if you haven't done so already. But as I mentioned, this is a great figure and definitely a worthy addition to the collection. In fact, it's a must-have. So if you want to pick this guy up for yourself, as always, there's a link down below in the video description, which will take you to staractionfigures.co.uk. And again, highly recommend that you pick this one up for yourself. So before we jump into the review, as always, let's take a look at the packaging that this figure comes in. So as you can see, we do get another really nice vintage collection card back for this figure. At the top of the card you've got the Mandalorian logo, and then just below that you've got, for the first time in the vintage collection, the Din Djarin name pill. As you can see on the side, we do have an image of the Mandalorian himself in his Beskar armour. This is a slightly low res pixelated image, but it doesn't take up too much space on the card. As you can see, due to the large plastic bubble on the front, the amount of space dedicated to the image isn't massive, so the low resolution isn't a major issue for me personally. I know it'll probably bother other vintage mint on card collectors, but that's okay. As you can see, in the bottom corner we have the Kenner logo, and on the front of the bubble you've got this really nice Kenner-esque, very vintage feeling sticker, which does of course indicate that the figure includes the Mandalorian and the Child. I love this sticker and it's one of my favourite aspects of the packaging. It's very similar to the sticker applied to the Amazon exclusive Sith Trooper, which of course came with some additional accessories as well, and it does remind me somewhat of the free Boba Fett offer stickers we used to get on the vintage figures back in the day. So very cool indeed. I really do like that. On the back you'll see some of the figures available in the vintage collection, some of which have been reviewed here on the channel, such as Hondo and Arca, ARC Trooper 5s and Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. So make sure you check those reviews out if you haven't done so already, because all three are great figures. So there we go, that is the Mandalorian vintage card back. Very nice indeed, really cool, but it's not the packaging you came to this review to see, it's the figure inside. So without further ado, let's take a look at the figure and his abundance of accessories. So here they are, free of their plastic prisons and in all his shiny Beskar armour glory, the Mandalorian and his ever-hungry counterpart, the Child. Really great addition to the collection right off the bat. I love the amount of detail Hasbro have packed into these figures. The accessories are fantastic, so let's jump right into it. Let's take a look at what makes this figure so great. So as you can see right off the bat, this figure is heavily weathered, which is one of the main things I love about this figure. Most Mandalorian figures that we've seen in the vintage collection and the Black Series so far have been relatively clean in their appearance. Obviously the recent Black Series 6-inch Beskar Mando was very shiny, but this version has tons of carbon scoring, lots of dirt, lots of battle damage, and it just looks fantastic. Really adds another level of depth to any Mandalorian display that you've got going on with regards to the 3 3/4 inch line. I really do like the finish on the armour as well. As you can see, beneath all that battle damage, you've got this really nice metallic finish, not only on the helmet but on the chest armour, the shoulder plates and the thigh plate there as well. Really cool looking armour and great paint applications. I love all this dirt and weathering, it looks fantastic. So that's definitely one of the key selling points for me about this figure, is the fact that it just looks so different to what we've seen from previous Mandalorian figures. As you can see, in terms of detail though, sculpt wise and paint application wise, this guy's top notch. Hasbro have really captured all the relevant details. You've got the canisters there around the boot, got dints and dings in the armour, a nice fake leather finish on the holster and on the belt, carried on up to the bandolier over the chest. I love the detail in the gauntlets as well. You've got the whistling birds on one side, the flamethrower of course on the other, and you've got the mudhorn signet sculpted into the shoulder plate. Just absolutely phenomenal detail on this figure. Hasbro really have outdone themselves in my opinion. It's a really well sculpted and put together figure. He's packed with articulation as well, to be honest, which in my opinion for a figure of this size is really well hidden. Usually you get a pretty visible look at, you know, all the cuts and joints and pegs that make up the articulation engineering, but with this guy it's really well hidden, and he looks, in my opinion, like a scaled down Black Series figure. That's how well this figure has been executed. Now in terms of articulation, he does feature a ball joint at the head, and what's really cool is that you've got a dumbbell joint in the head, in the sense that there's a ball joint at the top of the head itself and at the base of the neck, so you get some really nice fluid movement there. The head is of course interchangeable. We'll get onto that when we talk about the accessories. He also features hinges at the shoulders, which on one side are slightly hindered by the shoulder plate, but on this side the plate itself has been sculpted somewhat separately from the rest of the arm, so that you can get it a little bit further up the shoulder. Now you don't quite get a full 90-degree bend, but you know, there is a little bit of give there, which is always good. We have hinges at the elbows, hinges at the wrists, a nice fluid ball joint at the torso. However, that is again slightly hindered by the bandolier strap. We also have hinges at the hips, swivel cuts at the thighs, hinges at the knees, and hinges at the ankles. So great articulation, on par in my opinion with the Black Series, and it just looks really, really cool. You can get him in some really cool poses, which is always good. Now in terms of accessories, obviously he comes with some additional pieces, but for the most part he does come with his necessary Mandalorian weapons. We've got the blaster pistol, which can be nicely stored in the holster on his belt, and he does come with the pulse rifle as well, which in its own right is really well sculpted and detailed. You've got some nice gold highlights on there, the pincers at the end, really nice detail on the rifle. Now it can be plugged into the bandolier on the back of the figure, however you do have to remove the jetpack. Now I've taken the liberty of super gluing the jetpack to the figure, as with the slightest little touch or wobble the jetpack flies off, and it was making it really difficult to review this figure without making it fly off and bang all across the table. So I've super glued it to the back, and what's really cool about this is the fact that the cape is sculpted around the jetpack, and at the same time I really appreciate this. It really bugs me, because this is something that should have been done with the Black Series 6-inch version of the Mandalorian in his Beskar armour. Obviously with that figure you can't display the plastic cape with the jetpack at the same time, but Hasbro have sculpted this differently so that you can display the jetpack and the cape together, which is something that they haven't even bothered to correct with the upcoming Black Series 6-inch build-up pack, which features Mando and the hover pram, the child, and all the other accessories, very similar to this release. So I love this. The fact that they've done this for the Vintage Collection version is fantastic, but why they couldn't do it for the Black Series is beyond me, quite frankly, and is one of the many reasons why I won't be picking up that upcoming figure, and why I prefer soft goods capes on some of my figures. But very cool nonetheless. Obviously if you don't super glue this down, you've got a hole on the bandolier where you can plug in the pulse rifle, but for me the majority of the time this figure is going to be stood on a shelf holding his weapons, not having them plugged into his back, so it's not a major concern for me personally. Now as I mentioned, the heads are interchangeable on this figure, so rather than a removable helmet you just swap this helmet out for the realistic likeness. So if you just give that a little pull, the ball joint can be removed and you can replace it with a, quite frankly, incredibly lifelike portrait of Pedro Pascal, which is of course the actor who plays the Mandalorian in the show. Now this is a great likeness. It utilises the photoreal phase printing technology, and it is really well done. Again, it's one of the aspects of the figure that rival the upcoming Black Series 6-inch release. This head sculpt is far better than the images we've seen of that figure. I love the detail in the hair. You've got some 5 o'clock shadow around the chin, and the likeness is bang on. Really, really well done. So very impressed with the human likeness with this figure. And this is definitely how I'll be displaying him on the shelf. Really, really cool look. And again, great detail on this guy. Seeing this one in person just really, well, seeing it on camera doesn't do it justice to seeing it in person. It's an absolutely mind-blowing figure, quite honestly. So that's all the accessories relevant to the figure. Now let's take a look at what else we get with Djarin. Obviously, the most notable accessory that we get with this release is, of course, the child. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first ever 3 3/4 inch release of the child that we've seen from Hasbro. We have, of course, got a version of the child coming out later on in the vintage collection, which will feature his hover pram and some other accessories. And there's one coming with the Razor Crest as well. But for the time being, this is the only version that we have access to in the 3 3/4 inch line. It's a great figure in its own right. Like with the Black Series 6-inch version, for a figure of this size, it's really well detailed, really nicely articulated as well. You've got a couple of ball joints at the shoulders and a ball joint at the head. And again, the detail for a figure this small is really nicely captured. Got two-tone colour going on in the eyes, you've got all the wrinkles and appropriate details on the head. It's just a very well done figure, and I'm very impressed with it. Obviously the colour palette's a little bit flat, there's not a whole lot going on in terms of colour, not much going on in terms of weathering, but in terms of sculpt, really well done. And for the sake of a quick size comparison, here he is alongside the Black Series 6-inch version. Obviously, the Black Series one I've found does scale pretty well with the vintage line, but it's nice to finally have a 3 3/4 inch release. But as you can see, there's not really much to them in terms of size. So there we go, that is the child. We also get with this figure a Camtono, which is of course the ice cream maker, made famous by Wilro Hood in The Empire Strikes Back. He's the guy in the orange jumpsuit we see running through the halls of Cloud City, carrying what is essentially an ice cream maker. This made its reappearance in the Mandalorian TV series, and it has been used to transport pieces of Beskar armour, or Beskar steel, should I say. What's really cool about this is that the lid pops off, as does the panel on the side, but it is quite a fiddly thing to do. You've got to get your nail under that hinge there and pull it down, but you can open it up. And what's really cool is that Hasbro have included some pieces of Beskar steel to pop into the Camtono. And what is even more impressive is the fact that they've sculpted the Imperial cog emblem into both pieces of Beskar steel. Now these are incredibly small accessories. I'm terrified of losing these, so it would be wise to store them within the Camtono when you're not using them. But that level of detail has to be commended. Really impressed with that. I think they've done a great job. So you do get some Beskar steel, you get a Camtono container, and you get the child with this figure. So again, great accessories, and that's certainly one of the key selling points of this figure. Very impressed indeed. So that is going to do it for this review. I really hope you've enjoyed taking a look at the Mandalorian, Djarin and the child, plus the plethora of accessories included with this figure. Again, this is a great addition to the collection and a figure that I highly recommend. It's really well executed, really well detailed, and again, one of my top figures of the year so far. So I'll be back with some more reviews very soon. I've got some more vintage collection figures to share with you, plus some more Black Series 6-inch stuff as well. So stay tuned for all of that. And until next time, as always, thank you for watching, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.